Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And I got a whole room full of spiritual seekers, including Prem Vilas and Lalita, the Dr. G's couple from Columbus, and along with an entourage with them, and people from Oklahoma. We got people from all walks of life, from all points of the compass, coming to hear Srila Prabhupada's books and get straightened out, I guess you could say, from lifetimes of living in this material world and not knowing who we are or where we're going or where we came from. Welcome aboard. And welcome to all of you out there in cyberspace. We've got about 1,250 followers now, and it's increasing. So we're getting attraction, and we're starting to get this boat, rowing. And we're here in Radha Lane. That's where this building is, on Radha Lane. You can even send a package if you like. It's got an address. It's not just a name that they gave the street. It's official. It's got a zip code and everything. So we're here to continue our journey down the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the path of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. But before we do, we're going to read, as we do every night, the Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, a beautiful prayer written by Sanatana Goswami, the senior disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, glorifying the Bhagavatam in a way that I don't think anyone else could. Lord Chaitanya personally spent more time instructing Sanatana Goswami than anyone else on the planet, hour-wise, numbers of hours. And it goes like this. Who can't? It's not my fault. It's darn microphone, that's all. Hare Krishna. How does that work? 1, 2, 3. Hello. Hello. That's what they do in India. Hello. 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 Doctor, we have your chair here, if you'd like to come. It's Giriraj Swami's chair. We have another chair here, right here for you. Please, Hari Balam. Okay, it goes like this. Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami. In case you want to look it up, it's from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, a book that he wrote. Sarva Shastabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all. We're doing this in unison. We're doing this in unison. Now listen to my voice and follow along. We should all sound with one voice, okay? It'll be more potent. Got it? Kind of like a choir in unison. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandotitaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Mat Sangin, Mad Udo Man Mahadana, Man Nistadaga Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin, atini chochatakara, hanamunchagadachin mam, premnarit katayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Well, Hare Krishna, brother. How are you? Nice to see you again. Hare Krishna. Okay, 23. And heading for the rafters. We're going to have to get a bigger room here pretty soon. Okay, we've reached the 4th canto, 7th chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. We're starting for the 59th verse. We're quite a ways into this chapter. We've already heard about a huge sacrificial performance that was done toward the beginning of the creation in a higher planet, in which Daksa, the chief Prajapati, became envious of Lord Shiva, which is not a very good thing to do, because he's a very exalted person. And as a result of that, his daughter, who happened to be married to Lord Shiva, became very upset and went to her father's house and got insulted. And by her mystic power, poof, she left this world in a psychic fire coming from within. You know, there's fire within the body. It digests our food. And there's so many things that go on. There's electrical currents going through the body. The brain sends signals and back and forth. There's all fire. And so there's a mystic way of invoking that fire and causing the body to burst into flames, if you like. Kind of like one of your batteries in your cell phone on a phone or something. It's in principle. So after that, Lord Shiva got really upset. He's very easily pleased, and it's possible to disturb him also. And he came and he wreaked havoc with this sacrifice. Daksha lost his head in more ways than one. And then all Brahman, everyone got together and went to Lord Shiva to offer prayers to him. And he became very easily pacified. He came back, brought Daksha back to life. All the other people who were maimed or somehow or other damaged in that got brought back to the same state they were. And now we're hearing about what happened to Sati, the personality who left her body out of protest. She was a real radical, what's the word? Not radical. When they do protest, what are they called? No.
Activist?
Huh? Activist. Now we know who we got in the room. Activist. Got it. All right, I got it. So here we go. Beginning with text 59, chapter 7, 4th canto. Ambika, goddess Durga, who was known as Dakshaniya, Sati, again accepted Lord Shiva as her husband. Because you see, we don't die. Nobody dies. And as soon as you find out about this, actually find out, and you realize it, not just that you think about it. I mean, we all try to avoid this thought that we're going to die. It's one of the laws of nature in the material world. But we are all going to die, every single one of us. We don't like to face it. And so we do all kinds of things to try to avoid it or make it better. Sleep, take drugs, have a lot of sex, go on vacations. etc., etc., etc. So, but we don't actually die. So the permanent solution is to actually realize ourselves through the process of bhakti yoga. So Sati has taken her birth as the daughter of the king of the Vindhya hills in India, and she's going to again accept Lord Shiva as her husband because they're actually eternal consorts. Ambika, goddess Durga, who was known as Dakshayini, Sati, again accepted Lord Shiva as her husband, just as different energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead act during the course of a new creation. Purport. According to the verse of the Vedic mantras, Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has different varieties of energies. Shakti is feminine, and the Lord is Purusha, masculine. It is the duty of the female to serve under the Supreme Purusha. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, all living entities are marginal energies of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is the duty of all living entities to serve this Supreme Person. Marginal means that we can be identified with the spiritual internal energy and world or the material energy and world. That is the choice of the marginal energy of the Lord. In other words, it's our choice to come here. And it can be our choice to return to our original spiritual homes and have eternal life in bodies that don't change and don't disintegrate over time. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, all living entities are marginal energies of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is the duty of all living entities to serve this Supreme Person. And if you don't, you'll be forced to serve something else or someone else, mainly our own body and mind and senses. We're actually slaves of our own body and mind and senses, even though we try to think that we're free. The connection of Lord Shiva and Ambika, or Durga, is eternal. Sati could not accept any husband but Lord Shiva. How Lord Shiva remarried Durga as Himavati, the daughter of the Himalayas, and how Kartikeya was born is a great story in itself. Text 60. Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, I have heard this story of the Daksa Yajna, which was devastated by Lord Shiva, from Uddhava, a great devotee and disciple of Brihaspati." Text 61. The great sage Maitreya concluded, if one hears and again narrates with faith and devotion this story of the Daksa Yajna as it was conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, then certainly one is cleared of all contamination of material existence. O son of Kuru. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 7th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Sacrifice Performed by Yoga. It's kind of like a really long play that we're reading, and so we clap after every act. Now we're going on to the 8th act of the 4th canto. There's 12 cantos, 18,000 verses. Yes. And if you read it cover to cover, you'll find out who you are, who is God, and how to get there. Chapter 8. Okay, we'll see you guys. Haribol, Chris. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home for the forest. One of my favorite stories. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya said, the 4 great Kumara sages, headed by Sanaka, as well as Narada, Ribu, Hamsa, Aruni, and Yati, and all the sons of Brahma, did not live at home, but became Urdhva Reta, or Naishtika brahmacharis, unadulterated celibates. Purport. The system of brahmacharya has been current since the birth of Brahma. A section of the population, especially male, did not marry at all. Instead of allowing their semen to be driven downwards, they used to lift up the semen to the brain. They are called Urdhva Retasa, those who lift up. Semen is so important that if by the yogic process one can lift the semen to the brain, he can perform wonderful work. One's memory is enabled to act very swiftly, and the duration of life is increased. Yogis can thus perform all kinds of austerity and with steadiness, and be elevated to the highest perfectional stage, even to the spiritual world. Vivid examples of brahmacharis who accepted this principle of life are the four sages, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara, as well as Narada and others. Another significant phrase here is Naite Grinan Yavasam. They did not live at home. Griha means home as well as wife. In fact, home means wife. Home does not mean a room or a house. One who lives with the wife lives at home. Otherwise, a sannyasi or brahmachari, even though they may live in a room or in a house, does not live at home. That they did not live at home means that they did not accept the wife. And so there was no question of their discharging semen. Semen is meant to be discharged when one has a home and a wife, and the intention to beget children. Semen is meant to be discharged when one has a home, a wife, and the intention to beget children. Otherwise, there is no injunction for discharging semen. These principles were followed from the beginning of creation. Going to the Friday program? Going to the Friday program?
Yes.
We'll see you. Hare Krishna. These principles were followed from the beginning of creation, and such brahmacharis never created progeny. This narration has dealt with the descendants of Lord Brahma from Manu's daughter, Prasuti. Prasuti's daughter was Dakshayani, or Sati, in relation to whom the story of the Daksha Yajna was narrated. Maitreya is now explaining about the progeny of the sons of Brahma. Out of the many sons of Brahma, the brahmachari's sons, headed by Sanaka and Narada, did not marry at all, and therefore there is no question of narrating the history of their descendants. Text 2. Another son of Lord Brahma was Irreligion, whose wife's name was Falsity. From their combination were born two demons named Damba, or bluffing, and Maya, or cheating. These two demons were taken by a demon named Niriti, who had no children. Purport. It is understood herein that Adharma, irreligion, was also a son of Brahma, and he married his sister Mrisha. This is the beginning of sex life between brother and sister. This unnatural combination of sex life can be possible in human society only when there is adharma, or irreligion. It is understood that in the beginning of creation, Brahma created not only saintly sons like Sanaka, Sanata, and Narada, but also demonic offspring like Niriti, Adharma, Damba, and Falsity. Damba means pride. Everything was created by Brahma in the beginning. Now, I should give a little explanation for this. The creation, the material creation, is considered to be the external body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is just like our bodies are created and then diminish and then are destroyed, and then we take another body, And the same thing happens, and we're on this cycle of birth and death. So Krishna has an eternal spiritual body, and so do we. But he doesn't move from one body to another. He maintains an eternal spiritual body all the time, and with a spiritual abode where he lives eternally. But when it comes time for us conditioned souls who have been in the material world for a very long time and who want to enjoy for ourselves, by ourselves, without connection with Krishna, then the material world is created. And that external energy, the material energy, which is constantly changing, and therefore forms are changing, and we're caught in those forms, and we're moving from one form to another, even within this body. Every second we have a new body. It's happening so fast, you can't see it. But at the end, when we change our bodies, then we think we change the body. But actually the body's a machine, and you can't change a machine from one form to another. But this body, therefore, you get another body. You can't change the machine from one machine to another, but you have a different machine at every second. It's just like when you pass, a picture in a newsreel or a film camera, what do they call it? Projector. And there's a spool of film, and it's going very fast. And when you pass the light through it, even though each frame it has a hand like this, and the next frame has a hand like this, and the next frame has a hand like this. And when you pass them very fast, it goes like this, and it looks like it's moving. So we get absorbed in these movies, and all these things are happening, and we're crying and laughing and whatever, identifying with the movie. But all it is light flashing. That's all. So this material world is like that. Our bodies are changing at every second. Different cells are dying and being born, and the body is actually changing at every second. And every once in a while we get a body that changes a desire. Before, when we're little boys and girls, we can't think of sex at all. And then all of a sudden we get these mature bodies, and that's all we think about, etc., etc. And when you get old, then you can't do anything, but you still think about it, because that's the way the mind, the subtle body, works, as a spool. And we get this one body after another, depending on the thoughts that we have. So what I'm doing is I'm explaining to you how it is that in the very beginning of the creation, there are saintly persons, and there are demoniac elements already at the beginning of the creation. Because in the previous creation, all the living entities were in a certain state of mind, and when the new creation comes, they all come out, and they go into different places and different universes, different bodies, to act out the desires, the unfulfilled desires they had at the end of the last creation. Just like we do the same thing in this world, in the next creation of this body, in this material world. That's the principle, the law of nature, that no one can change. Okay. Everything was created by Brahma in the beginning. Regarding Narada, it is understood that because his previous life, he was very pious, and his association was good, very good, he was born as Narada. Others were also born in their own capacities, according to their backgrounds. The law of karma continues birth after birth, and when there is a new creation, the same karma comes back with the living entities. They are born in different capacities according to karma, even though their father is originally Brahma, who is the exalted, qualitative incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 3. We're getting a little psychology lesson here. Text 3. Maitreya told Vidura, O great soul, from Damba and Maya were born greed and Nikriti, or cunning. From their combination came children named Krodha, anger, and Hingsa, envy. And from their combination were born Kali and his sister Durukti, harsh speech. Text 4. Now we're finding out where all these things came from. O greatest of all good men, by the combination of Kali and harsh speech, were born children named Mrityu, death, and Biti, fear. From the combination of Mrityu and Biti came children named Yatana, excessive pain, and Niraya, hell. Text 5. My dear Vidura, I have summarily explained the causes of devastation. One who hears this description 3 times attains piety and washes the sinful contamination from his soul. Purport.
Can we read it 3 times?
Yeah. My dear Vidura, I have summarily explained the causes of devastation. One who hears this description 3 times attains piety and washes the sinful contamination of his soul. Of course, 3 times means the whole chapter, which has got, anyway. No, it was just this 5 verses, but we're going to hear this for 3 times. You can go back and hear the other 3 times later on. My dear Vidura, I have summarily explained the causes of devastation. One who hears this description 3 times attains piety and washes the sinful contamination from his soul. Means that the soul is never actually contaminated. It just gets kind of covered. Yes. Purport. The creation takes place on the basis of goodness, but devastation takes place because of irreligion. That is the way of material creation and devastation. Here it is stated that the cause of devastation is adharma, or irreligion. The descendants of irreligion and falsity, born one after another, are bluffing, cheating, greed, cunning, anger, envy, quarrel, harsh speech, death, fear, severe pain, and hell. All these descendants are described as signs of devastation. If a person is pious and hears about these causes of devastation, he will feel hatred for all these, and that will cause his advancement in a life of piety. Piety refers to the process of cleansing the heart. As recommended by Lord Chaitanya, one has to cleanse the dust from the mirror of the mind, and then advancement on the path of liberation begins. Here also the same process is recommended. Malam means contamination. We should learn to despise all the causes of devastation, beginning from irreligion and cheating. And then we shall be able to make advancement in a life of piety. The possibility of our attaining Krishna consciousness will be easier, and we shall not be subjected to repeated devastation. The present life is repeated birth and death, but if we seek the path of liberation, we may be saved from repeated suffering. Text 6. Maitreya continued, O best of the Kuru dynasty, I shall now describe before you the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu, who were born as a part of a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Mind you, we're hearing a description of the history of this universe. Purport. Lord Brahma is a powerful expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Brahma is Jiva Tattva, he is empowered by the Lord, and therefore he is considered a plenary expansion of the Supreme Godhead. I think we have an exalted guest arriving. Is he going to go put his hat away? Maybe. Did he go? He's putting his hat away. Okay. Lord Brahma is a powerful expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Brahma is... Okay, I'll wait until we settle down. Although Brahma is Jiva Tattva, he is empowered by the Lord, and therefore he is considered a plenary expansion of the Supreme Godhead. Sometimes it happens that when there is no suitable living being to be empowered to act as Brahma, the Supreme Lord himself appears as Brahma. Brahma is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Swayambhuva Manu was the direct son of Brahma. You may remember there's a term in the Bible, a person called Abraham. 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 Abrahma. From Brahma. The great sage Maitreya is now going to explain about the descendants of this Manu, all of whom are widely celebrated for their pious activities. Before speaking of these pious descendants, Maitreya has already described the descendants of impious activities, representing anger, envy, unpalatable speech, quarrel, fear, and death. Purposely, therefore, he is next relating the history of the life of Dhruva Maharaj, the most pious king within this universe. Text 7. Swayambhuva Manu had 2 sons by his wife Shatarupa, and the names of the sons were Uttanapad and Priyavrata. Because both of them were descendants of a plenary expansion of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they were very competent to rule the universe, to maintain and protect the citizens. Purport. It is said that these 2 kings, Uttanapad and Priyavrata, were specifically empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unlike the great king Rishabha, who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Text 8. King Uttanapad had 2 queens, named Suniti and Suruchi. Suruchi was much more dear to the king. Suniti, who had a son named Dhruva, was not his favorite. Purport. The great sage Maitreya wanted to describe the pious activities of the kings. Priyavrata was the first son of Swayambhuva Manu, and Uttanapad was the second. But the great sage Maitreya immediately began to speak of Dhruva Maharaj, the son of Uttanapad, because Maitreya was very eager to describe pious activities. The incidents in the life of Dhruva Maharaj are very attractive for devotees. From his pious actions, we can learn how one can detach himself from material possessions and how one can enhance one's devotional service by severe austerities and penances. By hearing the activities of the pious Dhruva, one can enhance one's faith in God and can directly connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus, one can very soon be elevated. Thank you, Maharaj. See, this is what happens when you get together with a saint. Then you get closer to the Tulsi plant. Hare Krishna. Okay, Camille, we'll see you later. Oh, good. Oh, good. Thanks. We're on Canto 4, Chapter 8, Text 8. The incidents in the life of Dhruva Maharaj are very attractive for devotees. From his pious actions, one can learn how one can detach himself from material possessions and how one can enhance one's devotional service by severe austerities and penances. By hearing the activities of pious Dhruva, one can enhance one's faith in God and can directly connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus one can very soon be elevated to the transcendental platform of devotional service. The example of Dhruva Maharaj's austerities can immediately generate a feeling of devotional service in the hearts of the hearers. Eduardo Hare Krishna. Text 9. Once upon a time, King Uttanapad was patting the son of Suruchi, Uttama, placing him on his lap. Dhruva Maharaj was also trying to get on the king's lap, but the king did not very much welcome him. Text 10. While the child, Dhruva Maharaj, was trying to get on the lap of his father, Suruchi, his stepmother, became very envious of the child, and with great pride she began to speak so as to be heard by the king himself. Purport. The king, of course, was equally affectionate toward both his sons, Uttama and Dhruva, so he had a natural inclination to take Dhruva as well as Uttama on his lap. But because of his favoritism towards his queen Suruchi, he could not welcome Dhruva Maharaj, despite his feelings. King Uttanapad's feeling was understood by Suruchi, and therefore with great pride she began to speak about the king's affection for her. This is the nature of woman. If a woman understands that her husband regards her as a favorite and is especially affectionate to her, she takes undue advantage. These symptoms are visible even in such elevated society as the family of Swayambhuva Manu. Therefore it is concluded that the feminine nature of woman is present everywhere. Text 11. Queen Suruchi told Dhruva Maharaj, "My dear child, you do not deserve to sit on the throne or on the lap of the king. Surely you are the son of the king, but because you did not take birth from my womb, you are not qualified to sit on your father's lap." Harsh words. We already heard about them, how that came into being. Purport. Queen Suruchi was proudly informed. Queen Suruchi was very proudly informed Dhruva Maharaj that to be the king's son was not the qualification for sitting on the lap or the throne of the king. Rather, this privilege was dependent on one's having taken birth from her womb. In other words, she indirectly informed Dhruva Maharaj that although he happened to be born of the king, he was considered an illegitimate son because of his birth from the womb of the other queen. Text 12. My dear child, you are unaware that you were born not of my womb, but of another woman. Therefore you should know that your attempt is doomed to failure. You are trying to fulfill a desire which is impossible to fulfill. Purport. The small child Dhruva Maharaj was naturally affectionate toward his father, and he did not know that there was a distinction between his two mothers. This distinction was pointed out by Queen Suruchi, who informed him that since he was a child, he did not understand the distinction between the two queens. This is another statement of Queen Suruchi's pride. Text 13. If you at all desire to rise to the throne of the king, you have to undergo severe austerities. First of all, you must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. And then, when you are favored by him because of such worship, you shall have to take your next birth from my womb. Purport. Not very nice. Suchi was so envious of Dhruva Maharaj that she indirectly asked him to change his body. According to her, first of all he had to die, then take his next body in her womb, and only then would it be possible for Dhruva Maharaj to ascend the throne of his father, which is another clear indication that the soul takes another birth and is the same person, but in another body. Text 14. The sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, as a snake, when struck by a stick, breathes very heavily, Dhruva Maharaj, having been struck by the strong words of his stepmother, began to breathe very heavily because of great anger. When he saw that his father was silent and did not protest, he immediately left the palace and went to his mother." Text 15. This is why we're supposed to have nice mothers. When Dhruva Maharaj reached his mother, his lips were trembling in anger, and he was crying very grievously. Queen Suniti immediately lifted her son onto her lap, while the palace residents, who had heard all the harsh words of Suruchi, related everything in detail. Thus Suniti also became greatly aggrieved. Text 16. The incident was unbearable to Suniti's patience. She began to burn as if in a forest fire, and in her grief she became just like a burnt leaf, and so lamented. As she remembered the words of her co-wife, her bright lotus-like face filled with tears, and thus she spoke. Purport. When a man is aggrieved, he feels exactly like a burnt leaf in a forest fire. Suniti's position was like that. Although her face was as beautiful as a lotus flower, it dried up because of the burning fire caused by the harsh words of her co-wife. Text 17. She was also breathing very heavily, and she did not know the factual remedy for the painful situation. Not finding any remedy, she said to her son, "My dear son, don't wish for anything inauspicious for others. Anyone who inflicts pains upon others suffers himself from that pain." Eternal truth spoken by the mother. We all learn things like that from our mothers. Text 18. Suniti said, my dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi is so, because the king, your father, does not consider me his wife or even his maidservant. He feels ashamed to accept me. Therefore it is a fact that you have taken birth from the womb of an unfortunate woman, and by being fed from her breast, you have grown up. Text 19. My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. Therefore, if you desire at all to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother, Uttama, then give up all your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The harsh words used by Suruchi to her stepson were true, because unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve any success in life. Man proposes, and God disposes. Suniti, the mother of Dhruva Maharaj, agreed with her co-wife's advice that Dhruva engage himself in the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indirectly, the words of Suruchi were a benediction for Dhruva Maharaj, for because of the influence of his stepmother's words, he became a great devotee. Text 20. Suniti continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so great that simply by worshipping his lotus feet, your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, acquired the necessary qualifications to create this universe. Although he is unborn and is the chief of all living creatures, he is situated in that exalted post because of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom even great yogis worship by controlling the mind and regulating the life air, prana. Purport. Suniti cited the example of Lord Brahma, who was Dhruva Maharaj's great-grandfather. Although Lord Brahma is also a living being, by his penance and austerity, he acquired the exalted position of creator of this universe by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. To become successful in any attempt, one not only has to undergo severe penances and austerities, but also must be dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This indication had been given to Dhruva Maharaj by his stepmother and was now confirmed by his own mother, Suniti. Text 21. Suniti informed her son, "Your grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, executed great sacrifices with the distribution of charity, and thereby with unflinching faith and devotion, he worshipped and satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By acting in this way, he achieved the greatest success in material happiness, and afterwards achieved liberation, which is impossible to obtain by worshipping the demigods." Purport. The success of one's life is measured by one's material happiness in this life and liberation in the next. Such success can be achieved only by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words ekamatya mean concentrating one's mind on the Lord without deviation. This process of undeviating worship of the Supreme Lord is also expressed in the Bhagavad Gita as ananya bhak, that which is impossible to obtain from any other source, is also mentioned here. Other source refers to worship of the demigods. It is especially stressed here that the opulence of Manu was due to his undeviating faithfulness in the transcendental service of the Lord. One who diverts his mind to worshipping many demigods to obtain material happiness is considered bereft of his intelligence. If anyone wants even material happiness, he can worship the Supreme Lord without deviation. And persons who are desirous of liberation can also worship the Supreme Lord and achieve their goal of life. So here there's a concept that's being clarified. In the West, we often think that Hinduism, or the Indian religion, is polytheistic because they have so many deities in their temples and external of their temples and everything. But here we understand that there's actually only one Supreme Lord, and all these other demigods are servants of that one Supreme Lord. They're like administrators of the resources of the universe. So it's not polytheistic, it's monistic, which means there's one God, and not only that one God is personal, is a supreme being, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 22. My dear boy, you should also take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Persons seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. Purport. The system of Bhakti Yoga, described by Queen Suniti to her son, is the standard way of God realization. Everyone can continue in his constitutional, occupational duties, and at the same time keep the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart. This is also instructed by the Lord himself to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Go on fighting, but keep me within your mind. That should be the motto of every honest person seeking perfection in Krishna consciousness. In this connection, Queen Suniti advised her son that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Bhritya Vatsala, which indicates that he is very kind to his devotees. She said, "You came to me crying, having been insulted by your stepmother, but I am unable to do any good for you. But Krishna is so kind to his devotees that if you go to him, then the combined kindness of millions of mothers like me will be surpassed by his affectionate and tender dealings. When everyone else fails to mitigate one's misery, Krishna is able to help the devotees. Queen Suniti also stressed that the process of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not easy, but is sought after by great sages who are very advanced in spiritual realization. Queen Suniti also indicated by her instruction that Dhruva Maharaj was only a small child, 5 years old, and it was not possible for him to purify himself by the way of karmakanda. But by the process of bhakti yoga, even a child less than 5 years old, or anyone of any age, can be purified. That is the special significance of bhakti yoga. Therefore she advised him not to accept worship of the demigods or any other process, but simply to take to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the result would be all perfection. As soon as one places the Supreme Personality of Godhead within one's heart, everything becomes easy and successful. Text 23. My dear Dhruva, as far as I am concerned, I do not find anyone who can mitigate your distress but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose eyes are like lotus petals. Many demigods, such as Lord Brahma, seek the pleasure of the Goddess of Fortune, but the Goddess of Fortune herself, with a lotus flower in her hand, is always ready to render service to the Supreme Lord. Purport. Suniti pointed out herewith that the benediction received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that received from the demigods are not on an equal level. Foolish persons say that no matter whom one worships, one will get the same result, but actually that is not a fact. In Bhagavad Gita it is also said that benedictions received from the demigods are all temporary and are meant for the less intelligent. In other words, because the demigods are all materialistically conditioned souls, although they are situated in very exalted positions, their benedictions cannot be permanent. Permanent benediction is spiritual benediction, since a spirit soul is eternal. It is also said in Bhagavad Gita that only persons who have lost their intelligence go to worship the demigods. Therefore Suniti told her son that he should not seek the mercy of the demigods, but should directly approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to mitigate his misery. Material opulences are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Haribo, Hare Krishna, see you later. See you soon. Yeah. Okay. Material opulences are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his different potencies, and specifically the Goddess of Fortune. Therefore, those who are after material opulences seek the pleasure or mercy of the Goddess of Fortune. Even the highly placed demigods worship the Goddess of Fortune, but the Goddess of Fortune, Mahalakshmi herself, is always seeking the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone therefore who takes to the worship of the Supreme Lord automatically receives the blessings of the Goddess of Fortune. At this stage of his life, Dhruva Maharaj was seeking material opulences, and his mother advised rightly that even for material opulences, it is better to worship not the demigods, but the Supreme Lord. Although a pure devotee does not seek benedictions from the Supreme Lord for material advancement, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that pious persons go to the Lord even for material benedictions. A person who goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material gain is gradually purified in association with the Supreme Lord. Thus he becomes free from all material desires and is elevated to the platform of spiritual life. Unless one is raised to the spiritual platform, it is not possible for him to completely transcend all material contamination. Suniti, the mother of Dhruva, was a far-seeing woman, and therefore she advised her son to worship the Supreme Lord and no one else. The Lord is described here as lotus-eyed, Padma Palasha Lochanat. When a person is fatigued, if he sees a lotus flower, all his fatigue can be immediately reduced to nil. Similarly, when an aggrieved person sees the lotus face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately all his grief is reduced. A lotus flower is also an insignia in the hand of Lord Vishnu as well as in the hand of the Goddess of Fortune. The worshippers of the Goddess of Fortune and Lord Vishnu together are certainly very opulent in all respects, even in material life. The Lord is sometimes described as Shiva Virinchi Nutam, which means that Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma also offer their respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we'll stop our reading here for tonight. And we'll have to come back tomorrow to find out more about what happened to Dhruva Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So now we'll have our favorite part of the program, our reflections. Anything that stood out in the mind? Okay, here, Camille is going to give some reflections or ask questions or whatever.
So, well, I guess just enjoying the reading this time, no questions. But I thought it was very interesting first off, that they were using the incestual relationships to describe the family tree of these evil qualities, I want to say. And it just seems like they were very simple demons at first, but then they seem to just progress. And it's almost as if we humans do the same thing. If we allow one festering of our lives, it will transcend into these other forms of, for example, of like harsh words and anger and bitterness. But this transitions into the next one, the next part, where she was speaking very harshly to this little boy. And this was making me frown. And it was very funny that in the book it said, a face of a loving mother will contort hearing these words, because really it only comes out of irreligion and ignorance that you would treat a child like that. It is so unnecessary. And then it goes to the next one where you were talking about how it would be wrong to say that we are a polytheistic consciousness, but rather, and I believe this is correct, we are monotheistic. There is only one source of God, and I feel that it would be illogical for Christians to say the same thing, because we have given now Jesus Christ, whom I believe has demigod qualities. He's human and in our form, but has these special properties to him, and technically this would follow that argument.
Yeah, well, it's not that there's one source of God. God is the source of everything. So I'm going to defer to my senior godbrother to speak on this subject. But before I do, I want to say one thing, and that is that all of us are interested in our family trees. All of us want to know, where we came from, and it's interesting. It's interesting. But this is the beginning of the universe, and all of us come from these personalities. All of us came from Brahma, and ultimately from Lord Vishnu.
Well, I thought she was just sharing some reflections. Is there a question or a topic?
Correct me. I did say that the one source of God versus the concept again. I misspoke. Really,
That's what I thought.
I think he wanted you to elaborate on this a little bit, or you could just comment on what he said. I think this is what you were going at.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you meant to say that there's just one God who's the source of everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take the liberty of explaining what this story means to me personally. because this story was very important in the early days of my Krishna consciousness after I first met Srila Prabhupada in Boston. I had been coming for a few days and hearing him speak. And after a few days, I asked him that I've been hearing you speak about the importance of service to God. So where does service to man fit? And then he told this story. But the conclusion of the story is the answer to my question, but we haven't gotten to the conclusion of the story.
It's just beginning.
So I have to continue this after we come to the conclusion. I can't give away the end.
This is the way you attract people to come.
Okay. So when you come back, not only will you hear the story, the conclusion of the story of Dhruva, you'll hear the conclusion of my story of how Srila Prabhupada told the story of Dhruva to illustrate that giving someone Krishna consciousness is the best service to mankind.
Thank you.
Uncle John.
I thought it was interesting how.
Wait. Oops. You dropped the.
Oh, sorry, Camilla.
I thought it was interesting how Dhruva is getting dressed down by his stepmother, and then she actually gives him the best advice, and he takes it. So it's like people can, and I'm sure she didn't mean to help him by telling him that, but she did anyway. So sometimes people can be out to get us, but actually say something beneficial to us if we hear it in the right way.
Beautifully said.
Jesus said that those who have ears hear. Wait. Thank you. Okay, Hannah.
To expand on that. Okay. This is what I took from. This is expanding on what Bhakti John said. And this is what I took from it. This whole pastime was so much mercy from Krishna. We take the body and the people in our lives so personally and become bewildered. But if we see everything as Krishna simply trying to pull us to him, there's total detachment and surrender, and naturally, love for Krishna. Krishna is kind to everyone and favors none, but when we make steps towards Krishna, there's a loving reciprocation the devotee can see and feel, and that leads to further detachment from material circumstances.
It was a great, absolutely beautiful. Thank you, as usual, Hannah. Yes, there's a very interesting devotee, Bilva Mangal Thakur. And I just read about this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because I'm doing an audiobook of the Chaitanya Charitamrita for the BBT, and I read this morning. And he, in the introductory prayer to one of his great works, the Krishna Karnamrita, he worships his three gurus. There's not just one guru, there's different types of gurus. And the devotee who first points one in the direction of God is called the Vartma Pradarshika Guru, or one who points the person, the first points him in the direction that puts him on the path towards God consciousness. So both Suniti and Suruchi combined to be the Vartma Pradarshika Gurus of Dhruva Maharaj. And then there's the Shiksha Guru, who gives relevant instructions to elevate the consciousness, spiritual consciousness. And then there's the Diksha Guru, the one who eventually initiates the disciple and connects one formally as a representative of God and takes that role. And normally the person who instructs one from the beginning and continually, not just the Pradakshika Guru who just points you in the direction, pushes you and then you go. Usually the person who instructs and then instructs for some time ends up becoming the Diksha Guru later on. That's the kind of flow. But interestingly, at the end of the path, I may be giving away oh my God. I can't do that because otherwise I'll leave something out which he's going to tell later on. So I'll leave it there. Just to try to increase the mellows. I know, I'm just trying to increase the mellow. So you'll have to come back and hear that. Will we see you again?
Yes, you will, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. Hare Krishna. Okay, who else is going to venture into the realm of reflection? Oh, okay. Pranata Karuna.
I had a question about Dhruva Maharaj's anger, because we've heard in Prabhupada's purports that even anger can be used or dovetailed in service to Krishna. I'm wondering, is Dhruva Maharaj's anger in this circumstance considered to be?
This is a very good question. I should take this. Sure. Okay, I'll pass it over to you as soon as they run out of realizations. You see, in the beginning of the creation, the modes of nature were more clearly defined. The mode of goodness results in certain qualities that are called Brahminical. And Krishna describes them in the Bhagavad Gita: equanimity, honesty, knowledge, religiousness, cleanliness, and so forth. Religiousness. And the Kshatriya, which is pure good, pure passion, who is the administrator, the king, the persons who want to rule or want to protect the citizens, they're called Kshatriyas in the original organization of the universe. Now everything is mixed together. No one can tell who they are, practically. There may be some predominant qualities, but not like in the beginning. So Dhruva Maharaj was one of the first kings of the universe. Brahma was first, then there was Swayambhuva Manu, then there was Uttanapad, and then there was Dhruva. So he's very close to the very beginning of the universe. And so his Kshatriya nature is pure passion. And therefore, the anger that came from him was actually pure passion. And it wasn't irreligious passion. It was pure. And therefore he was capable of hearing the instruction from both his stepmother and his mother, and to look for God for the answer to his perplexity. He wanted to get a kingdom that was greater than his father and his grandfather, which means greater than Brahma, which is a pretty big desire, but it was pure in a sense. Not pure in the sense that it's purely spiritual, but it was pure passion without any goodness, So, so yes, that pure passion allowed him to follow the instructions of his stepmother and then his mother. And now we're going to hear about where he goes to find God.
That was a good answer. I mean, that was very much in keeping with Srila Prabhupada's teachings about Dhruva and the Kshatriya nature and how he exhibited the Kshatriya nature. And in a way, you could say that he did dovetail his anger in the service of the Lord, because that anger became an impetus for him going to the forest and performing austerities to find God. And so, yeah, like you said, it wasn't uncontrolled anger. It was anger, but he was still able to hear the good instructions of both his stepmother and mother. And later on, we'll find another time when Dhruva became angry, and the higher authorities instructed him, and he accepted their instructions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. Introduce yourself.
My name is Prasannatma Das.
Prasannatma,
Hare Krishna. So, before reciting this, I really liked the Krishna Leelastava, the 5 verses of glorifying Srimad-Bhagavatam and Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. Like whenever we read this, Srila Prabhupada always, gives that 360 degrees vision of the whole essence of Krishna consciousness in every page, almost like, in his purports. So it's always nectarine how many times we read, how many times we hear. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, that was nice. You just got a present of that prayer on that card, so you can keep it. Yes, every one of Srila Prabhupada's purports, it seems like a complete unit, and it explains everything, But also, his purports are so transcendental that they have layers upon layers upon layers of meaning. So they actually are for beginners who are just beginning to learn, and they're for the most advanced devotees also, the Paramahamsas, because they can hear more and more, and therefore you can read this book again and again and never come to the end of it, and always learn something new every single time, even if you read it hundreds of times, which is not so easy because it's 18 volumes, 18,000 verses. So if you read 41 pages a day, you can read the whole thing in 1 year. We won't go through it 1 year in this forum, because I'm going a little bit slower and more carefully, so that the hearers can hear it and get more from it. But yes, thank you very much. It's a fact that every time you hear about Krishna, it seems like everything's answered, and the next time you hear, something else is answered, and the next time you hear, something else is answered. In this way, the nature of transcendental literature, as Srila Prabhupada described it, is amrita. It's eternal and it's nectarian. These 2 words, these 2 meanings from the word amrita. It's nectarian, like nectar, and it is amrita, it is eternal. Yes. And in one of the verses that you liked, it's described that every syllable pours down a flood of prema, of love of Krishna. So we shouldn't miss one syllable. Even those descriptions of the generations and the genealogical tables of all these great personalities, and even the names of their personalities, are transcendentally purifying. Because although we don't hear much about some of those personalities, they're all very, very special personalities. Otherwise they couldn't be listed in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is billions and billions and billions and billions and trillions of years of history are contained in the Bhagavatam. So behind each one of those names is a lot of potency, a lot of spiritual potency. And these names have the potency to clean our hearts, as Prabhupada said in one of the purports. The same potency that the holy name has. to clean our hearts. So Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam. Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gaturanyata. In the Kali Yuga, there's no other alternative than the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And the chanting of the Srimad-Bhagavatam is non-different exactly than chanting the holy name of the Lord. Therefore it said there in the prayers that you enjoyed that the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the Lord himself. It is a literary incarnation of Krishna. So in the Bible it says that in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So these are the sounds that the Bible was talking about. And it doesn't give many details because the people around in those days didn't have the capacity to hear much. But if you keep hearing, then you get more capacity to hear. And if you keep on hearing, you will get the full capacity to hear. And then you will see Krishna in the pages of the Bhagavatam or in the chanting of the holy name. And then your heart will become completely pacified, and you will have an eternal engagement of loving transcendental service. And as soon as you just taste a drop of it and engage your mind and your senses in this activity of glorifying Krishna and relishing, associating with Krishna through the literary incarnation and through Harinam, the incarnation of his name, then yes, we become fully satisfied, fully happy. That's what we're all looking for. And it's the process that is recommended for this age of Kali, where quarrel, dissension, differences of opinion, fractionalism, it's all breaking apart the human society, which is created by Krishna, in order to cooperate together in the different roles that we have in human society, social structure, to glorify Krishna. And here in this story we see the mother, instructing the son what to do to satisfy his longings in his heart in relationship to God. So, Hare Krishna. It is almost 8 o'clock and my bewitching hour is 7:45. So, Mritatwaj Maharaj told me the other day that I looked like a pumpkin. Or no, maybe that was Hanumat Prashak Maharaj. But anyway, I'll turn into a pumpkin if I don't take rest early so I can get up and read the Bhagavatam. So with your permission, unless you want to continue the conversation, we'll retire a bit.
I had something later.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you all out in cyberspace for joining us and continue to join us regularly for all this time. And thank you all in this room for your lovely hearts and ears, because there's a direct connection between the tongue speaking and the hearts and the ears of the hearers. And I'm finding that the group of devotees that come here to hear is making it easier and easier to speak. So thank you so much to all of you. And all glories to Dhruva Maharaj, and a glory to his mother Suniti, and Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same station, same time. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for, we're still on? Okay, good. Tomorrow is Saturday. Saturday and Sunday, the readings are at 4:30 Central Time in America. Monday through Friday, 6:15. It's kind of like the Apple Store. Monday through Friday, 6:30, and Saturday and Sunday, 4:30. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.